Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks so much for joining us today. I am Riley Vasquez. I'm the founder of Tour Collective, and we are in week 3 of our series called 4 Strategies to Help Tour Managers Thrive on Their Next Tour. In our first week, we talked about what it means to become a value-driven touring professional, and we showed you a few characteristics of what makes up a value-driven touring professional, and how if you want to grow your career, you've got to be committed to personal and professional development. And in fact, the last 2 weeks have been more about developing personally. This week and next week, we're talking about more of developing professionally. So that first week, we talked about characteristics of a value-driven touring professional and how to adapt those into your life. And then last week, week 2, we talked about 3 things you want to do before starting a new job. No one wants their dream job to become something they dread. And if you do the 3 things we talked about last week, it's going to help bring clarity, and it's going to help bring more success in your job from day one of whatever job you're starting on the road. This week, today, week 3, we're going to be getting into the advancing side of tour management. My partner, Jesse, and I, you might have met him last week. He's actually hanging out in the chat. So if you have any questions or have any thoughts, any remarks on today, throw them in the chat. Introduce yourself. Jesse's hanging out there. But we deconstructed hundreds of successful advances that we had done over the past, 10 years or so. And we boiled the whole process down to 7 repeatable steps that are going to allow you to advance a show of any size. And so this is going to be an excerpt that's taken directly from our course called How to Be a Tour Manager. And I'm just stoked to share this process with you because it's really going to save you a lot of headaches. It has helped me in the past. It's helped me follow an actual written down process. It's going to help you do the same thing on your next tour. Also joining us today will be Matt Eldridge and Brandon Jazz from the new app called All Access Advance. And this app is going to save you so much time and energy on the road whenever you're tour managing. Those guys are going to be here with us in just a few minutes, talking about how their app is going to just really revolutionize the industry. And then lastly, week 4, we're going to hear from Jim Digby. He is the CEO of Event Safety Alliance and Showmakers. He's going to be talking about how to manage COVID, how to avoid risk on your tour, and how to keep your team and yourself safe on the road. We are all going back to work soon. We're all getting new jobs soon, and it is of utmost importance that you keep yourself and your team safe as we move forward. Now, you can rewatch all of these sessions simply by going to the place you signed up, tourcollective.co/series, and you'll see some graphics there. Underneath those graphics, you'll see watch replay. You can watch the replay there, or just open up the email tomorrow when I send it. Once again, thanks so much for being with us today. If this is your first time joining in, please introduce yourself in the chat. We have had over 160 people join in. We've had I think 12 or 13 countries represented. So people from all over the world, let us know where you're from. You might make a new friend. Anyways, today we are jumping into really deep into one of the hard skills of tour management. It's something that every tour manager does for every show, and that is advancing. So whether you've been a tour manager for more than 10 years, you kind of just dabble in tour management, maybe you work with a band and the details just always happen to fall in your lap, or maybe you're a student and a tour manager is your dream job. Whatever, whoever you are, today you're going to get a lot of value in this webinar. Now, I've never really seen anyone teach a process for advancing. Most of the time, people just learn by failing, or they just guess and they hope they get it right. But today, you're going to walk out with a real process of how to advance any show. It doesn't matter if you're putting together details for your buddy's jazz show at a club down the street, or maybe you're working with an artist playing a big headline show at an international festival. No matter what size the show is, this simple advanced process is going to help you crush any show you manage. And just a quick reminder, this is taken directly from our How to Be a Tour Manager course. This course is we designed it during the beginning of COVID. We spent about 8 months working on it, and it's designed to help you specifically learn how to manage tours and what that process is. There's not a lot of training for people out there in our jobs, and you shouldn't just have to guess how to do your job. So in this course, we actually show you step-by-step processes on exactly how to do the job of tour managing. And in this course, we created a fake band. And you need to know this because we're kind of diving into the course stuff. But we created a fake band called the 1962s. And your job in the course is to help budget, advance, operate, and settle a show performed by the 1962s. So today, when you see documents on the screen, just know the 1962s is a fake 4-piece rock band from Brooklyn, and they are starring in our How to Be a Tour Manager course. And then if you decide this information is really great, you want to take the course, we'd love to meet you. I'll tell you about how to do that a little later. But let's back up just a little bit, because there may be some folks here who don't know what the term advancing means. You could have been around this industry for a while and still not really know what the term advancing means. And that's okay. So we just want to give you a definition, just to kind of help your brain understand. It's super easy. But advancing simply means figuring out all the details ahead of time or in advance. Instead of waiting to get to the venue to find out all the details for your show, when you advance properly, it's going to be like you've created a blueprint in your mind for what you're trying to build and a roadmap for where you and your team need to go. There are so many moving parts to a tour. Your job as a tour manager is to help all of these parts work together like a well-oiled machine. And just like any other type of job, there is a process that you need to follow. There is a process for advancing. So today I'm going to share with you what that process is, how to use that process to make every show successful. So let's dive in to the 7 different steps of the advance process. You are going to want to write these down. You're going to want to take a screenshot, whatever it is, however you learn. Maybe take your phone, stick it on silent, throw it in the corner for an hour. But this is going to be great information to help you do a great job tour managing any show. So the 7 steps of the advanced process are: first, request and read contracts. 2, learn your artist's vision for the tour. 3, create your tour rider. 4, draft an advance email. 5, add an actionable item, or also known as a call to action. 6, organize your flow of data. 7, follow up. Now, over the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at each of these 7 steps. And like I said, write these down. It's going to help you a whole lot in the future. Okay, first, request and read contracts. Ask your manager or agent for the contracts or the deal memos for the shows that you're advancing. Now, in our line of work, contracts are typically called deal memos. And a deal memo can be defined as the short form version of the contractual agreement between the artist and the buyer. The buyer could be, well, you know who the artist is, but the buyer could be a venue, it could be a promoter, it could be an organization, or the buyer could also be a single entity, like a family hiring your artist that you work with to play for their kid's sweet 16 birthday party. So the deal memo lays out specific details of the contract in a very short, easy to read document, typically no longer than 2 pages. And just like we talked about last week about you clarifying your job and you making sure you know exactly the amount of money that you're going to make, the artist uses this to make sure the whole team knows their terms of the agreement, their compensation. And typically, like I said, it is very short, 2 pages long. Now, you should have possession of the contracts. You should have the deal memos in a folder, before you do any type of planning or advancing. You can't just go off details that the manager is telling you about the show or the details that the artist is telling you about the show. You have to know the facts. And by the facts, you got to know the items that the artist and the buyer have agreed upon. If you're going on a proper routed tour, maybe all over the US, all over Canada, Live Nation or AEG may have bought the tour. And a lot of the deal memos will be pretty close to the same, except for the city, state, location, venue. And maybe, some nights you'll make a little more money. But if you're doing a bunch of fly dates or a bunch of one-offs where every show is completely different, then your deal memos are also going to look completely different. A lot of things will change, like if the promoter is paying for ground transportation and hotels, or whether or not the artist has to pay to rent backline for the show. Request and read contracts before you do anything else. Now, if you're here and you're not a tour manager, or you've never been around tour management, you might not have ever seen what a deal memo looks like. Let's show you one real quick. And remember, this is for the 1962's first show, which is happening in Columbus, Ohio. And just so you know, this is actually a real contract. We just changed some of the information inside the contract to protect all the parties involved. But for the most part, this is a real deal. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. In our course, we kind of go through every term in detail. But today, I just want to tell you a few things that you'll see on a deal memo. You'll find out who the artist is, who the buyer is, the location you'll be performing, the billing of the artist, like are they going to be headline, co-headline, support, the tentative day of show schedule, ticket scaling, merchandise fees, compensation, how much the artist is going to get paid, the terms of the agreement, show expenses, and really anything else pertinent to the show that needs to be agreed upon in a contract. And remember, you need to know all this before you start doing any type of planning or any type of advancing for the show. If you start a tour, if you start advancing a show without reading the deal memo first, you're probably going to look unprepared. You are probably going to probably get some question marks from the buyer, because they'll know you haven't read the deal yet, because you'll typically ask questions that'll be covered in the deal memo. You'll be doing double work. So request and read the contracts and deal memos before you do anything else. That's step one. Step two, we talked about it a little bit last week. Learn the artist's vision for the tour. You can better prepare for a tour when you know the overall vision. So this would include the whole touring process: production, personnel, staffing, VIP, travel, any kind of principles or culture that the artist wants to have on the road. And we recommend doing this step at the very beginning of your job, which is why we talked about it last week. But to advance properly, you got to be able to totally see the vision that your artist wants to accomplish. And before you continue on in the advancing process, you've got to have a good grasp what production needs will look like at each venue. You got to know what type of staffing and personnel is needed at each show. You got to write down your VIP process, your meet and greet process, so that you can share it with the venues. You'll also want to know, details about how you'll be traveling to and from each show. All these questions need to have answers before you continue your advancing process. So learning the artist's vision and kind of building that vision, writing it down, it's going to help you to lead a great team. It's going to help you be a great leader. It's going to help you make easy and quick decisions about what has to happen to execute each show. So learn the artist's vision for the tour. And then once you understand the vision, it's time for you to do step 3, create your tour rider. Now, this is a fun part, and most of you know what a tour rider is. It's that document that's famous for only asking for green M&Ms, or, a real bear rug in the dressing room. Or someone told me recently Prince asked for a green room with plastic all over the furniture, and he wanted to come in and move the plastic off himself. Kind of weird, but this is what the rider is. The rider, by definition, is a group of documents that tells the promoter or the venue what you're bringing with you and what you'll need to be able to make the show happen. And sometimes, more importantly, what you need to be able to make your artist happy at the show. Now, you can be as detailed as you want on your rider. You can design it, you can make it pretty, you can do whatever you want with your rider, and it may take you a while to get it perfect. But just a word of warning, as soon as you get your rider perfect, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to change it. Riders are always changing. But the rider is a list of documents that the promoter has to agree to. And some people choose to send long form contracts that are they send long form contracts with the rider, and they actually ask the buyer to sign it and send it back. That's not necessarily all the time. A lot of time people just send simple riders to tell exactly, what you need to be able to do the show. And that's kind of what we're going to highlight today. So a simple rider would include contact information, production specifics, overview of the tour, hospitality requirements, dressing room requirements, backline list, input list, stage plot, maybe a pass sheet, and then settlement info. Let's go through all these real quick. Contact information. And once again, this is just a very simple contract taken out of our How to Be a Tour Manager. I'm sorry, a very simple rider taken out of our How to Be a Tour Manager course. But you'll see here contact information. Who are you? Who's the artist on the rider? How does the promoter or other venue staff get in touch with you with questions about the show? And you can see that this is just the first page of the rider, and it's clearly laid out on who to contact. Now, you can put your lighting director's info in here. You can put your production manager's info in here. You can put anyone's info in here that you want, but you need to have some type of contact information in the rider. Second thing to include in your tour rider is production specs and an overview of the tour or show. So this could include all audio, all video, lighting, power requirements. You're basically telling the buyer what kind of show they need to be expecting. If you're an EDM artist, you might be talking about filling up the pit with bubbles in this section. Or maybe if you want to shoot confetti off at your show, you might be talking about it in this section. If you need risers for your tour, you might be talking about it in this section. Third, hospitality requirements. And let me just say, number 3 and number 4 might go together, but today we're going to spotlight them individually. So hospitality requirements, sometimes called the hospitality rider. This is going to have information about what you need as far as catering, meals, towels, really any kind of food details. This is going to be all relayed in this hospitality document. And that takes us to the dressing room requirements. This is going to include everything that you need to be in your green room, from tables and chairs to snacks and alcohol. I've seen people even start to ask for puppies, which is really fun whenever you get to a show and there's puppies backstage. That would be included in this space. But once again, we're just sending a very simple food and beverage list in this document, but you can be as detailed as you want. If you need a lazy boy chair and a TV to watch a football game, that would be included in the dressing room. So if you're flying to a show, you're probably going to be renting backline. If the promoter's paying for it, you're going to need to include a list of all the backline you need them to rent for you. So you'll see on this list that there's very specific details, all the way down to, what type of drum heads are being used on the drums. So when making this list, you'll want to go to either your musical director or all the musicians, find out all the gear and all the instruments that they would love to have, so that you know exactly what they need to pull off a great show. The 6th item you'll typically see in a tour rider is an input list. This outlines all the microphones, cables, stands, pretty much all the electronics that are being used. A lot of times it's color coded like this. It has very specific microphone requests for each instrument. And on this input list, you'll see the input, where it's located on the stage, and where it plugs in on the stage. And then just like at home, when salt is always passed with the pepper, the stage plot is typically passed with the input list. So the stage plot shows visually where all these mic stands, cables, and instruments are going to be placed on stage. Typically, together, you'll have an input list and stage plot for every show, no matter how big or small. The main goals for the input list and stage plot are so that production staff who don't know anything about you or your artist or your tour, they can look at this and easily jump in and start helping out so that your day goes way more smooth. Another goal is just to make sure that these items are provided at each venue, or that the production company who's working with your tour is providing each of these things. And then whenever you rent backline from a company, sometimes they'll load all the backline onto the stage for you way before you actually arrive. And so if they have a stage plot and an input list, they understand what your production looks like. And sometimes they'll set up all your gear for you, and it is really super helpful. It makes your show day go super fast and easy. Number 8, in your rider, you might have a pass sheet. Now, some people prefer to send this ahead of time, but if security is a big problem with your tour, you may want to provide this day of show. But this is just simply a list and a picture of the passes that you'll be using on your tour. Not everybody chooses to send this ahead of time, but you can make that decision. You also might want to have a picture of the band on top so that they don't have to carry a pass with them, so that every security personnel knows what they look like. And then number 9, the last thing you'll always want to include in your rider, no matter how big or small, you always want to include settlement info. Don't let the promoter give you any reason not to pay you for the show. Provide them this information up front. And you'll see here that this is just simply a W-9, which has the business name, the artist business name, their address, and their employee identification number. Just reviewing this real quick, 9 things to have in your rider: contact information, production specs, hospitality requirements, dressing room requirements, backline list, input list, stage plot, pass sheet, settlement info. Like I said, these are typically 9 things that every simple tour rider will consist of. Your rider will look very different than this. Every rider looks different. You can really add anything or take anything away that you want. And that's the fun part about being a tour manager. You can be as creative as you want. If you want guacamole only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, great. If you want hummus on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, awesome. You can make that decision as a tour manager. But say you spend hours and hours and hours designing this beautiful rider. How should you send it out? Let's talk about step number 4. The 4th step in the advanced process is drafting an advance email. The tour manager is the liaison between the artist and the promoter, or the artist and the venue, the artist and the buyer, and you are the bridge. The tour manager is the bridge, and your advance email is typically the very first connection between you and the buyer. And in this email, you're going to need to communicate a lot of details, but I will say you need to be especially kind. Whether or not you communicate super well, always be kind. To execute a show, you need the person on the other side of that email to be on your side. So you should establish a good rapport with them from the very beginning. You never want to come off as cocky. You never want to come off as arrogant or difficult to work with, because it will come back to bite you in the butt, especially on this very first advance email. You might feel like you should be firm. You might feel like you have a lot of questions and you're stressed out about the show or something, but just make sure you watch your tone, never be rude. It will come back to haunt you. Sunday night, this past Sunday, I managed a show in Nashville. And as I was following up with the promoter 24 hours out from the show, I noticed that we had a text thread from 2014. Now, that was 7 years ago. Now, if on that text thread I had been short, difficult to work with, or had said some rude things, 7 years later, that would have come back to get me. But luckily, I was kind. I thanked him for his help, and that started us off on a great foot. We had a great night. So just a little example for you. A lot of advance emails that tour managers send, they are disorganized. They typically don't communicate clearly, and they don't accomplish as much as they could. I wish we had more time here today to talk about an advance email and the process of it. We dive a little deeper in the course. And so if you want to learn how to write an effective advance email, that's one of the things we cover in the course. But one thing I do want to recommend about writing an effective advance email is to use technology to your benefit. So whether you're scheduling calls with a free software called Calendly, that is so easy to schedule advance calls, or whether you're using Dropbox links, instead of attachments in your email, using technology, it's going to help you communicate quickly and more clearly, and it's going to keep you from having to do double work. Okay, the 5th step in your advance process, it can be part of your advance email. It can be part of any phone call you have or any email conversation you have with promoters or buyers or venue production people. Add an actionable item. Now, this could also be called call to action. Typically, the person on the other side of the phone, other side of the email, they want the show to go well, and they want the advance process to be easy. So it's up for you to direct them. So give the contact the next simple step in the process in getting your show ready to go. So this could include, asking them to answer some questions, or telling them to schedule a call with you, or maybe asking them to go get a backline quote if they're paying for backline. It could be making sure that your bus has parking permits so you don't get a ticket. You are the tour manager, and people will typically go where you lead them. So lead promoters and lead venue staff by kindly telling them what you need to be able to make your show successful. When you're having a conversation or emailing back and forth, you're going to have a lot of information coming your way, and you are going to have to figure out how to organize it. So how do you organize all this tons of information coming your way? We're going to talk about it. Step 6: organize your flow of data. The way information makes its way to you, it's going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hydrant at times. Especially if you are starting a large tour, you're going to feel so much information coming up to you, but you got to stay organized. And the way you stay organized is really the same in every part of life. It's the same as keeping your room clean, having a place for your clean clothes, having a hamper for your dirty clothes. Don't be like me and keep your clean clothes in a basket for a week and then decide to fold them. That's not staying organized. But it's the same for information. If you have a place to put all your information that you're going to be receiving, organizing that data won't be a problem. Every tour manager or event manager, they have their own way of organizing information. In just a second, I'm just going to glance over to my personal advance template. I'm going to show you how I organize information and, kind of show you how I typically put information in. Our guys in a few minutes at All Access Advanced, they're going to actually show you a new way of doing it. But I also just quickly want to shed a little more light on the Dropbox platform. If you don't have one yet, you need to sign up for Dropbox. It syncs up with your computer. It acts like an external hard drive in the cloud. It makes saving and sharing files super easy. So this is one great way of organizing data that's coming to you. If you have a lot of PDFs, a lot of pictures, maps, whatever, make a folder for each show. And then any document that comes your way, just throw it in the folder, and then you can share it with a link or drag and drop, whatever. But I'm going to take a quick look at the advanced template real quick. Okay, great. So this is also in our course. You'll see it's our course advanced. This is the 1962s we're talking about. This is their first show in October 1st last year. But every tab here will have this information at the top. And that just kind of helps me know every show that I'm working on. And this is right here is one show. So I know that when I'm in this file, I'm working on one show. So you'll see I have contacts right down here, and this is all my contacts at every show. You'll see I have just a classic schedule, and this will work for any event. You can build your own, but this is just kind of how I have mine laid out. Labor, you'll see here I kind of have like a labor, for load in, labor for setup, all day labor, who's going to be here for the show, just so I kind of see visually, what's happening that day. Advanced details, I have it all laid out by travel, load in and parking, dressing rooms, hospitality. And then a lot of times you kind of forget what questions to ask. Sometimes you need to remember what kind of questions to help jar your memory. So I go over here to advanced details with questions, and I've got just all these questions in here that really help me to nail down my advance. And the same with production. Load in, stage production, audio production. As a tour manager, you're not always handling production, but sometimes you are. And so it's good to have a place to put production details as well as a place to ask production questions. So this is just kind of simply how I have mine set up. Once again, the All Access Advanced dudes, they're doing a whole different thing. And I think what they're doing is pretty awesome. But if you have any questions about how to set up an advance, we're going to do a Q&A in a few minutes, and that'd be a great time to talk. Okay, let's head back in. Boom. To the 7th step, follow up. Continue following up until all your details are confirmed. Promoters, venue reps, they typically will go quiet on you. They will go dark. Most of the time, they don't really care if you have all the info that you need to have. It makes no difference to them, So you have to stay on them to give you information. You have to stay on them to make sure things are happening. So continue to follow up with them 24 to 48 hours before each show. For large moving operations like a big tour, this is the make or break moment of your advance. This is the time where you make sure you are fully 100% confirmed and ready to go, and you have all your ducks in a row. So there's a couple things here. You might want to write this down if you're taking notes. A couple things you should follow up on. So first of all, follow up on your schedule. Even if you already got approval earlier for a tentative schedule, just make sure you go through the schedule one more time and ask, is this what's advertised online? A lot of times a promoter may have an error on their website, and the website may say something different than what's on your advance. But you never want to start a show earlier than the time that's advertised online, because if you do, no one will show up. So hopefully by this point, someone on your team, you, the promoter, they would have caught this error, but just make sure to follow up on the schedule. Second, follow up on staffing or labor. Are the right people going to be where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there? I always like asking that question. So go through your day in just a chronological order, just a timeline. Have you confirmed all load in and setup staffing? Have you confirmed all VIP event staffing? Have you confirmed all your security staffing? Have you confirmed all your show staffing, like production people, audio, lighting, video, follow spot operators, ushers, whatever you're bringing in to make the show happen? Have you confirmed all your load out staffing? So making sure that there's going to be people there to help you pack up the show, pack up your truck. These are all great questions to re-ask about the staffing. Third thing you want to follow up on is hospitality. What is your team going to eat for breakfast? What are they going to eat for lunch, dinner? When's it going to be served? How is the food going to get to you? Or how are you going to get to the food? Is all the dressing room, rider, food, and drink confirmed? If so, who's buying it all? Is it on you? Is it on them? Is it coming out of the catering budget? How's it working? Have you thought about extra bus stock? And if you don't know what bus stock is, it's just food that you put on the bus. Sometimes when you get done with the green room, you don't use all that food. It goes to the bus, but bus stock is food that's bought specifically for the bus. And then the last thing, you don't want to let your team get hangry on the road. So make sure that food is absolutely confirmed in dressing room, on the bus, for lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee. These are important things to follow up on. Next, follow up on your parking. Confirmed your arrival and departure time, and confirm that the parking map you received was correct. Sometimes you could have been sent a crazy parking map. So it's just good to say, hey, should I be parking on the corner of Main and 34th? They might say, oh, no, we built a new parking lot. We've got a gated area for you. That's where you're going to be backing in. Good idea to follow up on the parking. Also, make sure your driver has access to that map, whether it's a Dropbox link you're sending, or maybe you're actually printing something out for them. Just make sure they have access. Another thing about the parking, think about your power. Confirm if there's shore power for your bus, or if you're running a generator, and if you're actually allowed to run a generator in the area. Follow up on all your parking details. Next, follow up on your contacts. Make sure you have cell phone numbers for everyone and not just office numbers. This can actually bite you in the butt. It's done that to me many times. Just because they have a number in their signature does not mean it's the right number for you to call or text on a show day. So follow up with every person about their best contact info. And let me just say, it's also great to follow up on the contact for the person who's going to pay you at the end of the night. People typically leave a show early, or they just are hard to find at the end of the night. Make sure you have a phone number for that person that you're getting paid from. And then follow up on all travel and accommodations. How are you getting to the show? How are other people getting to the show? Is there anything different about this certain show? Do you have all your hotels booked? Do you have all your flights booked? Do you have all your ground transportation booked? Does your team have all the info they need to be able to travel properly? So if your team's all coming in from different places, do they have all of the info they need to be able to make their flight on time, or get to their car service on time? Or can they actually call an Uber? Do you trust them to be able to get in a car? Follow up on all the travel and accommodations. And then lastly, follow up on production and backline. You won't always have to handle production if you're a tour manager, but sometimes, like I said, you will. And you probably will have to handle some things more often than you think. So if you're not production savvy, you may want to get a little training from a friend, maybe a coworker, someone who knows more about production and who's been in these situations. And when you follow up on all these details, it's going to be hard for random things to slip through the cracks. I told you the first week about forgetting to follow up on backline on a show. I got fired from the tour before it actually started. I missed tens of thousands of dollars of income. It's one of the huge reasons why we created this course. Follow up on all these details. You don't want to look like a bad tour manager. You absolutely don't. So at this point, you should be ready for your show. You should have all the details sorted out. You should have all the information in your advance sheet or wherever you keep all of your details. You're going to have to get all this information from your spreadsheet or from your template or wherever it's at to the brains of all your team. And there are a lot of different processes to do that. But if you at least do all of these steps, you will know that you are prepared for your show. So I'm going to go through these steps one more time. If you haven't taken a picture, if you haven't taken a screenshot or written these down, this is your last chance. Request and read contracts. Learn your artist vision for the tour. Create your tour rider. Draft an advance email. Add an actionable item or a call to action. Lead these people where you need them to go. Organize your flow of data, number 6, and then 7, follow up. And we just talked about a million things you need to follow up on. These 7 repeatable steps, they sound kind of easy. They seem kind of easy to look at, and you would say, oh yeah, this makes sense. They're probably going to take some work to implement, but implementing this is going to take practice. And now you have a process to follow, though. And you're not just going to be guessing, whether or not you're doing things properly in the future. In just a second, we're going to talk to the guys behind All Access Advance. But if you're watching this and you're enjoying the teaching and you want to learn more about tour management, maybe you feel like you've just had no training and this is something you want to do, but maybe it seems like a mystery to you, or maybe you don't want to leave your job up to chance. Join in on our course. It's really going to help you gain the knowledge and the tools and the confidence to be able to go out and manage your next tour. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Matt Eldridge and Brandon Jazz. We are going to talk today about advancing, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen. And then we're actually going to do a little Q&A with you guys. Can everybody, Matt, you perfect. And also just remember that Jesse is down in the chat. It's kind of hard for me to see chat stuff. So Jesse, feel free to jump in if anybody has a question, like while we're talking, if it makes sense. But first of all, just want to introduce Brandon Jazz, Matt Eldridge. They are part of a new app called All Access Advance. I've been plugging it the whole time because I think it's awesome. I think it's going to revolutionize the touring industry. Kind of tell us just quick little blurb, Matt, of who you are, what you're doing with the app, and why it's important.
Yeah, just a little backstory on me. My name is Matt Eldridge. I've been living in Nashville, Tennessee for the past 13 years. Started off playing in bands like a lot of people in Nashville and found myself opening up for some of my favorites, which is how I landed a gig with Moon Taxi, who I've been touring with since late 2011. So yeah, I'm on the tour management, production management, artist management side of things, but I also do concert lighting. I love some flashing lights, so I do a lot of work in that space as well. And yeah, that's just a little backstory on me. Jazz, you want to?
Oh, yeah, Brandon. Speaking of flashing lights, Brandon Jazz, aka Jazz back there, that is not a virtual background.
Yeah, I had a lot of downtime this year to really just trick out my home office space. And luckily, one of the perks of the job is I have access to a lot of lighting and production stuff. So I did it up in here. But I'm Brandon Jazz. I'm now the CPO of our company, which just means I help develop the product. But same as Matt, I came from playing in bands, which turned into an internship at a venue, just trying to get my band booked, not even for school credit. Managed some venues, which turned into tour management, and then eventually led to this company, which is kind of how we got here. I did have not quite a correction, but you mentioned that what we were doing was a completely different thing than what you're doing, which isn't true. It's all the same principles. It's everything you just talked through. All the 7 steps completely apply. It's just one space that you can do all of those things. All of the steps happen rather than in your email, in text messages, and phone calls, and just all these different spaces. It just keeps it in one centralized location so that that information is accessible to everybody in a quick and timely manner. You don't have to try to remember, I know somebody approved this, but I can't remember if that was in a text or was I on a phone call with this person.
Yeah.
Just keeping track of that information. So we've just been really drilling down the past year trying to work on a platform that we can share with everybody as tours start back up, that kind of gives you the tools to implement everything that you're talking about, so.
That's awesome. Well, we're here today talking about advancing, which is a huge part of what your platform helps out with. It's a super important part of the job. You would agree, right?
I mean, it's everything. Yeah.
Arguably the most important thing we do.
Yeah, totally. If you advance properly, you are essentially setting yourself up for success on a show day. As many things as you can figure out ahead of time, as many hurdles as you can jump over before the day of show, it's going to make your day way smoother. I talked about how I lost a job because I did not advance properly. I wanted to see if any of you guys had a story, where, maybe you didn't advance a show properly. Tell us something about, the reason you kind of created this thing.
Well, I don't know if this would be a reason we created this, but just one story of a bad advance on my part that led to trouble. I almost got kicked out of our show during the band set while wearing an alien costume one time. So this band, Saint Motel, I work with, who I love because it's always this big theatrical production with props and just like elaborate kind of themes. And this one was a movie themed show where we flew a spaceship out in the crowd during a part. It was like an outer space themed part of the show. And the singer would crowd surf on it. We'd bring it back in. And I wore an alien costume to just kind of hype up the crowd. It was just like a fun little 5 minutes during the night. I put on this little green man suit with an alien mask and just go out and kind of cheer on stage. One night the spaceship was broken, so we couldn't do it. The singer had the idea, well, why don't we like ask people in the crowd who came from like far away, and then you'll come running up in the alien costume, jump over the barricade, come on stage, and everybody will cheer. And we thought it was an awesome idea. I forgot to tell security about it. And the thing about this alien costume is it doesn't really have a place for credentials. So I didn't give them a heads up that the tour manager was going to be in an alien costume jumping over the barricade. So when I did it, they tackled me and tried to throw me out. And like the singer's like trying to yell in the barricade, like, that's our tour manager. Like, he's cool. It's fine. So just like a little oversight. I forgot to advance that with the venue that we were going to do that. And, I almost got thrown out on the sidewalk because of it. So it's little details, if people know, then they can, they could have cleared a space for me. They could have made it easier for me to hop the barricade or helped me up.
Yeah, they would have actually helped you instead of completely going against you.
Yeah. So it's just little thing. If you just communicate with everybody around you what you're trying to do for your show, they're happy to help most of the time. And you just got to make sure that you let them know these things, because otherwise it can kind of backfire on you.
What about you, Matt? Do you have any moments where you could have advanced something better on the road?
Yeah, my story is it's actually how I became a tour manager. So it's a long story, but I'll just kind of give the cliff notes. This was a summer tour with Moon Taxi back in 2013. So back then, I was the only roadie for the band. We were just traveling around the country in a 15-passenger van. I was running lights and selling merch, and the bass player was the tour manager at the time. So you can imagine how that goes. But we're out west in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, trying to get to Billings, which is a beautiful drive, those mountain roads, but it absolutely wrecked our van's engine and we broke down in the Grand Teton National Park. And since we don't have a tour manager, everyone's basically like, cool, there's no way this show's going to happen. Let's just head back to Jackson Hole. And just like that, show's canceled. Lesson in the class, there's always a way. The show must go on. But we didn't have a tour manager at the time, so show gets canceled. We're decided to take the van to a repair shop. We find out that it's going to take a couple days, so we're scrambling trying to find another van. We end up finding a friend of the band who plays. He also is in a band. He has a van that says we can borrow his. Cool, great idea. The dude's also a river guide, and he insists that we need to take a quick trip down the Snake River the next morning before we head out of town to get to the next show. And since there's not a tour manager, we're like, sure, no problem. Let's go down the river. So we're just being stupid, irresponsible. And, by the time we finally make it down the river, which, I mean, it was a blast. It's one of the most fun things I've ever done. But, whitewater rafting, don't do that on a show day, because that's your whole day. But anyways, we get down the river and, we're already crunched on time. So we speeding over to this guy's house where the van's parked. And turns out the dude doesn't even have the keys to the van. His bandmate is skiing in Aspen with the keys for some reason. So just like that, second show is canceled.
Oh, no.
Our manager is pissed. I could hear him just like, yelling at the band guys on the phone. And, thankfully I was just, the one roadie who didn't really know what he was doing at the time. So I didn't get an earful as well. But, you know, story ends the next day, the van gets fixed and we make the next show. But yeah, 2 shows canceled. So sorry if you're a Moon Taxi fan in Montana back in 2013. Sorry we didn't make those shows. But we get back to Nashville, and then their manager calls me, a day or two later. He's like, "Yeah, I think you all need a tour manager. So you want the gig?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And we've been crushing it ever since then.
That's awesome. Well, glad you made it back from from that crazy experience. Montana, long way from home. You guys have not only been tour managers, you've also been tour coordinators. Can you kind of talk about what the difference between those 2 jobs are?
Yeah, the big difference is, there's a lot of overlaps, obviously, but typically a tour coordinator advances everything from home or remotely, and then sends a tour manager to handle everything day of show. Sometimes if it's a smaller band, that could be the audio engineer or, the drummer of the band. So basically all the logistics are handled by someone who isn't on the ground.
So, okay, if you're not on the ground, what are some other, challenges that you face as a tour coordinator that maybe a tour manager doesn't handle?
Yeah, being able to fix things on the fly day of, so much of our line of work is, that saying, let's cross that bridge when we get there, but you just really can't do that as a tour coordinator. You really got to make sure your advance is great and all loose ends are tied up before your team's on the ground and walks into the venue that day.
Yeah, and that kind of also speaks to just the importance of a really good advance, whether it's a tour coordinator or a tour manager. If you've got all of everything taken care of in advance that you can predict and that you can control, that frees up your time on the day of show to deal with all the things that pop up, because something always pops up. Whether it's, you're in New York and everyone from the label and management and the booking agency is trying to get on the guest list and bother the band backstage in the green room before the show, or you've got press stuff that comes up, or girlfriends in town for the show, or when the van breaks down or somebody gets sick, or the things that you can't control. It requires a lot of brain power and just quick thinking on your feet to be able to come up with solutions to that stuff. And if you're still trying to figure out, basic advanced details on the day of show, you're not going to be able to effectively, pull rabbits out of your hat like you have to do as a tour manager all the time. So just try to set yourself up for success, like you're saying, with just everything that you can control. Just make sure that you've got it knocked out, because the day of show, there's going to be other things that need your attention always.
So if you're working with multiple people here, and that's a great way to grow your tour management business. We've talked a lot in these webinars about, what you're doing as being a business. Do you have any communication tips for working with those multiple people?
Yeah, I would say whatever calendar sharing app you're using, whether that's Master Tour or Google Calendar or, the soon to be All Access Advance, just put a ton of info in those places and try to answer every question. But also be, available for those phone calls that come through in case something's not right.
Yeah, I'll also say, we've done a lot of beta testing on this app, just working with tour managers and venues, trying to figure out how they, you got to meet the band where they are, like find what they respond to, what works for them, because they are your boss and you're trying to, it is a customer service job, like you said. The best example I've heard, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting who shared this with us, but their artist refused to look at day sheets. They wouldn't look at Master Tour. They wouldn't look at printed day sheets or emails of it. They wouldn't do it, but he knew that they were always on Instagram. So he created a private Instagram account that just, followed the 3 of them, the 3 people who wouldn't check day sheets. And every day he would format his day sheet to a little square and put the times on it and tag them in it and share it as a story on that private account, because he knew they couldn't say, well, I didn't see it. It's like, no, you're on Instagram all day. I know that you saw it. I tagged you in it.
That is incredible. I've actually never heard that, never thought of that. What a wild concept.
It's so simple, but he's like, like where you're meeting them where they're at, like, where are they? What do they respond to? They love Instagram. All right, well then that's where the info is going, So
as a tour coordinator, you are working on multiple tours. You're sending people out to do the job, and you're kind of at home base, they're kind of going out. How do you communicate a vision? We talked about learning the artist's vision. Are you meeting with them, with the artist, kind of all in one space, or are you trying to relay that vision to them? I'm just asking, kind of how do you typically send out a tour manager like that?
Yeah, it like you said, it's definitely the artist needs to definitely be in on those first conversations to see if they have a vision. But I mean, that definitely it depends on the artist. Like a Saint Motel, like Jazz was saying, they're going to be involved with every step of the way. Whereas if it's a smaller band, they might not even know. So you might need to help them out and
Mhm.
be like, this is what you need to put in your writer, because they might not even know those questions that you need to answer.
Yeah. And you sort of touched on this already, Riley, but just the idea with your advanced emails, you really get to set the tone for the conversation. And this kind of goes to how Matt and I first started working together. A band I was working for was opening for Moon Taxi. And I just loved in his advance, like he ended his emails with like, let's keep it low stress. We're all in this together.
Mhm.
And, I was with a 9-piece band that was doing a 30-minute opening set when they've got all this production, there's no room on stage. And it was, a difficult tour. And it just kind of, framed how I was approaching everything. And so as the tour manager, you have the ability to do that. Like like you said, people will follow you if you just set a good vibe for what this needs to be. And if you set expectations with the crew on the road, or the crew, if you're out on the road, like, if you earn respect and you are professional and set just like a good positive vibe for everything, people will respond to that. And if you know what you expect from others, that you want the band's experience to be, like you can kind of guide that without having to really force it, because you just create that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. The tour manager has so much influence on the road, way more influence than most people would even imagine, think that they have. There is if you're a tour manager and you're kind of a toxic human, well, the tour will be a toxic tour because that will flow into everyone because you are looked at as a leader. The artist is actually the artist. They're the star. They're doing their thing, but you are looked at as the leader on the road, from the artists, from the musicians, from the crew. And so you can be the glue that holds the team together. And so yeah, that's great. That's a great statement, Jazz.
Mhm.
Okay, so you guys, you created this app called All Access Advance. It's helping tour managers, helping tour coordinators, helping venues. uh, Tell me real quick what problems you're solving with your app.
Well, I guess a good thing to bring up now, we wanted to kind of have a little contest game that we shared with everybody who's watching. We just want to see who can find the longest advance email thread. You send an email, and then by the time people get copied in, or you had the wrong contact and it gets forwarded to somebody, and then somebody replies all in red, and then somebody's quoting somebody else, attachments get lost, whatever. I think the longest that we found between the two of us was Matt had one that was like close to 80 emails deep for Bonnaroo 2018 with Moon
Yep.
Taxi. Just lengthy emails with all sorts of people in and out of the conversation. That's the main thing that we're trying to eliminate, is even when you do get the advance completed, somewhere in this just maze of information, it's finding that information and getting it to a place where you can share it, where you can use it. So trying to just centralize that process, we're pitching what we call a 2 email advance. So there's one that starts it, and
Two email advance.
yeah. So the first email is just, hi, I'm the TM for, Saint Motel, excited about the show. Here's a link to your advance. And then it takes them to our platform, and everything happens in there. You assign, different users or people on your team who are empowered to interact with it. Information, docs all go there, schedules get approved, requests get approved or denied. Everything about your show just kind of happens there, which then your day sheets are automatically created and shared with people. You always have something you can refer back to quickly and easily to find the
Mhm.
information you're looking for.
So you're essentially connecting over an email first, and then you're going to go to the app and do everything you need to do. All the back and forth happens in the app.
That's the idea. And
That's awesome.
we were skeptical that people would get on board at first, because a lot of people who've been doing this for a while are very set in their ways. But everyone that we've spoken to has been really excited about it and really grateful in just the idea of, I don't care if we do it my way. I just wish there was one way that we all did this, just
Mhm.
some sort of standard, because it's different every time. Like, how many different shows have you advanced? Well, that's how many different kinds of advances you have dealt with. So
What do you
that's
see? What do you see in this space happening in the next like 5 years or so? Do you see people moving to a single platform like that?
that's the idea. I mean, and not even in 5 to 10 years, we're hoping in the short term, like, obviously everything in the past year has been very like just difficult and trying and just kind of heartbreaking on many levels. But a positive spin to it is that we get a kind of once in a lifetime opportunity to all start back from the same starting line at the same time. And just a quick little pause to be like, hey guys, before we start this all over again, can we talk about how we do this and maybe like make it a little better and not do all the same things that made our job so hard and difficult all the time? So we're really hoping, almost immediately to kind of try to offer tools or a different way of thinking about how we approach this. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just, adding some technology components to it that are definitely missing. And then in 5 to 10 years, I hope that, touring exists in a different kind of frame of mind for everybody, that the people who work in these tours have the tools that they need, that they are able to have free time and personal lives and just be appropriately paid for the work that they do and have a quality of life that is sustainable. And also by taking away the repetitive tasks, the like static info, we call it, the things that don't change, you can automate a lot of that so that you can focus on the road about the quality of your show or the experience for your artist, or, the actual things that make this job fun, like why people want to get into it in the first place. Because it's, such an incredible feeling to just see all those people in the crowd enjoying the show you put on. But half the time you're too tired and stressed out to really enjoy it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you are managing so many details and you can get so bogged down on the road, and it can just be, all the fun can be sucked out, and all the meaning can be, also sucked out when you're just, buried in the details. So this is great what you're doing. Jazz, will you show our folks here kind of just a little example of what you got? I know you've got a little video real quick, but will you show that to us real quick?
Yeah, this is a real quick little teaser. It goes by real fast, but I guess if you watch the replay, maybe you can slow it down and see kind of what's happening here. You got my shared screen?
Yeah, I got you.
Cool. Well, we're going to hit it. This is the All Access Advanced platform in 42 seconds.
Yeah. Nice. And just want to let everybody know here, like, we're not getting anything for showing all this. This is not a sales campaign here, but we're just kind of showing you that these guys are really trying to solve some problems we've had in the industry for years, and how we can all go to, back to work a little bit better. I know you guys have a couple shows coming up. Jazz, I saw you've got some in Europe coming up soon, in the late summer or fall. Matt, you've got one in Knoxville, a big festival happening in Knoxville soon. You're going to the Caverns soon in Tennessee, 2 cool Tennessee shows. How are you guys going to approach the next shows different than you had been doing things for the last, 10 years or so?
Yeah. I'll address the elephant in the room. We aren't out of this pandemic yet, and I got a show this weekend. So there are definitely some different steps to the advance that a tour manager needs to tackle with the COVID protocols and mitigation, all that. And I'm not going to go into detail too much on that because I know you guys are talking about that next week. But what's been really cool is you got some great promoters coming out of this mess, willing to do shows the right way and the safe way. And the pod setup is pretty cool, and it can be done safely. So, obviously there's some health screenings and temperature checks for everyone coming in. And then they're rolling with, like, if you need backstage access, if you're working the event, you got to have a proof of a recent negative COVID test or proof of a vaccine card on you. So it's kind of weird, but, I'm just telling everybody on our team, just think of this as your new passport. This is the way to get back to work. So
yeah,
I'm just stoked it's not a drive-in though, because I've heard some bad stories about the sound at those drive-ins. Like, you're like listening in on your radio or something like that. It just sounds
radio
terrible.
or a PA. Yeah, it can be crazy. Jazz, what about you? Anything that you're going to be kind of doing differently moving forward?
Well, those I actually don't have any dates coming up
Oh, sorry. I think I just
well,
looked at a website and saw some.
Well, as you are probably aware, for a lot of artists, when you go to Europe, they'll have a European tour manager who
Cool.
will handle those dates. So I'm not actually involved in those coming up. So right now, it's just really focused on the platform, trying to get these tools available to knock out all the regular day-to-day things we've always dealt with. So that, like I said, you can figure out how to approach these new challenges and the new normal. Because we're still
Yeah.
going to be dealing with the pandemic for for quite some time after this, and it probably will change permanently how things are done. Safety and security issues now more than ever, just in terms of protecting your band, protecting the audience from
Mhm.
whether it's health risks or weapons or whatever it may be. It's a kind of a whole new frontier. We're trying to figure out how to safely do these things, and it's we don't have the solution to it. No, I don't think any single person does, but collectively, we as an industry have to figure these things out together. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're at an hour. I do want to open it up for a couple questions though, because I know people are going to have questions. Jesse, jump on in here and
Yeah. So, real quick, if Matt or Jazz, if you guys can talk a little bit about what, for people who might not know, what Master Tour is, and then what your platform is, if there is any relationship there, if they work together hand in hand, if they're very separate and different, just kind of dialogue on those things a little bit.
I'll grab that one if it's cool, Matt.
Yep.
People ask us a lot, so what you're working on, it's basically like Master Tour, and the answer is no. It's everything that happens before Master Tour, where the actual advance happens. Master Tour is a great, powerful tool for sharing information with your team once you have the advance completed, which, basically you're going through your emails, conversations, text messages, and copying and pasting, plugging that info into Master Tour and giving it to your band in a way that's, convenient on their phone for them to see schedules, add guest lists, things like that. What we're really doing is going way back to the beginning of the process. When the contract is signed, and that is what starts it all. When you get that, taking all of the information from that point forward and putting it in a centralized place, so that it's easier to get it into Master Tour or to get it into a Google Calendar or put it on an Instagram day sheet, wherever it might be going. Just try to take control of that and give some more like robust tools to the tour manager of what they're going to do with that info to get it compiled in the first place.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and
Okay.
to kind of build off that, as far as like integration with Master Tour, we would love that. Definitely open to that. But right now, the kind of workaround is you can copy like a click copy for any of the info in there, and then just paste that into your notes in Master Tour.
Yeah. We
Super
also
easy.
automatically create our own day sheets if you want to use our digital version of it. They're all mobile friendly, and you don't even have to create them. They just, once the advance is completed, it automatically pops up on your dashboard on our platform, ready to share.
And they look super cute.
Yeah, they're colorful.
All about the look.
Okay, maybe
Cool.
one or
So-
two more questions, Jesse.
Yeah. So one good one that I know is one that I think I posed to you guys when we first learned about what you guys were doing was, so if we're sending this all access advance link to the local production manager, how does it work for them? Like do they have an account? Do they have to do some long sign up process? Like what is that like so that it's quick and easy for everyone?
Right now, we've got a sort of one-click solution to that, where if it's shared with you, you have access to it. We're right now working on creating multiple tiers and access levels of venue level accounts. So the advance contact on that show could then assign out production managers who are just responsible for individual pages of it. Or maybe your runner has access to like the dressing room, hospitality, transportation schedule items, but they don't have the tech specs or settlement info. So you can kind of empower individual people. At that point, accounts are going to be required, but we're trying to make the barrier to entry very minimal so that we can get venues to engage with it. Because like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are really suspicious of change or new things. So we're just trying to get people to engage with it right now. But the more people get on board with it, the more tools we can offer. But
Cool.
those things have
So
to
I
be
could by all
locked
means just take the link for my show in Columbus, Ohio and send it to my grandma and she could by all means just get in there and do stuff. She doesn't have to create an account off the bat, right?
It's your advance if you really want to just
Hey
throw it in
man,
the fire.
grandma wants to know what I'm up to.
Yeah, we'd recommend you share your day sheet with her instead. That's designed to be shared. So.
I know someone asked if this is going to be compatible on desktop and mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The actual advancing will probably remain a desktop feature because it's just a little much to try to do on a phone, and I don't know anyone who advances on a phone. But all the sharing and day sheets and the things that you would want your artist crew to be able to access, that'll be mobile friendly.
I did a little bit of advancing for part of a month years ago when I was just starting out. My computer was stolen on tour, and I was still too poor to just go out and like buy one at the Apple store. So I was doing everything from my phone before, like it was as optimized as it is now with as many features. And so it was awful.
When your phone was this big too.
It was awful. Okay. I think the last question we'll address, and this is kind of for all of us here to kind of chat about. So Riley, you mentioned earlier in this webinar to use technology to our advantage when advancing a show. So you mentioned using Calendly to schedule calls with people. So Aaron's asking if there are suggestions aside from Calendly, All Access Advance, a master tour, other sorts of pieces of technology, apps, websites, software that you would recommend to make use of in your advance process.
You guys have anything that you're typically using?
I've got a couple. I'm a huge fan of Trello. We use
project management app.
Yeah, we use it for the team for sharing design stuff for the app, but I also use it a lot on tour just to keep track of my docs because it can function like a Dropbox with a really cool visual element to it. So I can have lists for all my logins or just all of these docs or things that you can pull up on a mobile app on your phone that's a little easier than Dropbox maybe. And it's easy to share things. I also love this app called Shift that I've been using. You can have all of your email accounts plus your Trello, your WhatsApp, Dropbox links, Bitly links, whatever, in just a one app. So instead of having 20 windows open, you've got one window that has all of your accounts. I love that one.
Yeah. And if you're a website person, like if you have your own personal website, you could get on and make your own web page with just links, downloadable links to production documents. You could have a festival document, a festival section. You could have a club section, a fly day acoustic section. We can have all that kind of stuff. And that's one thing I've done, with my personal website. I've got some pages that are unlinked. You can't find them, but they have it's just really simple to click a button and download it. And you can just send that link to anybody. If you're using an iPhone, sometimes you struggle with sending, a green text to someone who doesn't have an iPhone with a PDF in it. That might be hard, but sending your own website / production or something like that, it makes it really easy.
It's exactly where we started out, which was the genesis of trying to build out an app version. Same exact idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, y'all, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you guys. Where can people find out more about you?
allaccessadvanced.com has all of our socials linked right there.
Cool.
And then the socials are all TM Inc. AAA.
TM Inc. AAA. And then I do want to spotlight everybody here because you came, you listened, you stayed, you engaged in the chat. You guys are going to give early access to everybody who is part of this webinar. And let me just say, this is a big deal. That not everybody has early access right now, but I'm going to send out a link in the replay email, and you guys are going to go and sign up for their app, and they're going to email you when they're ready for you to download.
Yeah. And Riley will give you a promo code to use or an access code. It's TC access, Tour Collective access. Just make sure you use that, and then we'll know that you came here or came to us from here. And before it's out for anybody else, we'll give you guys, we'll shoot you guys an email and let you know that you can try it out.
This is going to be great, man. The world is opening back up. Everybody here has got a new advanced process. They've got a new app. They're going to be able to jump in and start making moves with. It's going to feel great, using a new product. So thank you guys. Real quick, next week, week 4, you're going to hear from Jim Digby. We talked about him a minute ago with Event Safety Alliance and Showmakers. He's going to be talking about managing COVID, managing risk, keeping your team safe on the road. As we're all going back to work, it is super important that we go back to work safe, for ourselves, our teams, our families. We got to stay safe moving forward,
And for the fans.
and for the fans. Yes. For everyone. But also, if you want to start the tour manager course, we'd love to meet you. You can actually, I'll send this, I'll share this real quick. You can schedule a call with us at tourcollective.co/call. We don't want to sell you something that's not going to work for you. So we'd love to meet you and just say a quick hello before you start. But once again, thank you, Matt and Jazz, so much for being with us. We appreciate
See
you guys. And I'll remind you, I'm sending out an email tomorrow, a replay email with the code to sign up for their new app.
Cool.
Awesome.
Big.
We'll see you guys
Thanks,
next
everyone.
week.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.